Let's freaking go. So we have a really fun live stream, a really juicy story that developed today. I feel college football is better when people take petty shots at each other. The pettiness of college football is what makes it special, right? The NFL, it's just an all business league. Even though there's been a lot of drama, that Tom Brady story is still so insane to me. Really, the Dolphins? But obviously, the main story here is what Ed Orgeron did. I don't know if it happened today. I don't know if it happened yesterday. I don't even know if it happened the day before. But we do know Ed Orgeron visited South Bend, Indiana over the past week and spoke to the team and told them, you will win a national championship, whether it not be this year, it could be the next, but he basically told them the following. So we'll play the video for you in just a second. But once again, we want to show our love to our friends over at Presley Collection and PresleyCollection.com. Okay, so Anthony Starr Presley, make sure you check it out. They do a diamond price match guarantee. It goes a long way to help you save on engagement rings, pendants, diamonds, all the good stuff. We all know football players love their jewelry. Look at Joe Burrow, right? So make sure you go to PresleyCollection.com for all your jewelry needs, watches, rings. He is an expert in all of it. We say hi to Derek, and I got to shout out Derek. He is a member of our football card podcast that we do. Now, you guys know that we give out football cards all the time. I've given out some of my favorite football cards, but this card I'm about to show you will not be given out. My first ever Kayshon Boutte autograph. There's not a whole lot of these, and it does have power on the front of it. So I really do appreciate you, Derek, for that. We say hi to LJ. We say hi to Tony. We say hi to Chris. And let's go ahead and play this Orgeron clip. And what I want you to do is I want you to judge for yourself. Is what Ed Orgeron said something that bothers you?
What a tremendous, tremendous university you have here. What a great coach and what a great coaching staff you have. Some of the best players in the country are right here in this group. I don't know when it's going to happen, but with this staff, this team, y'all going to win it all. You're going to pick up the truth. All right, when it's going to happen, I don't know. I can't tell you that. How bad do you want it? You don't have to wait for it. Why somebody else needs to be better than you? I'll tell you what. Physicality, use it. There's other team spirit, use it. Okay? Good luck to you guys. Hey, I know you got a lot of things to do. Coach, thanks for letting me talk to this team. I am fired up. I can't wait to see you guys play. I'm going to be pulling for you guys. But remember this. This is your team. This is your brother. You fight for it. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it, man.
That video via Notre Dame and their athletics department. So, type Y for yes, type in for no. Does this bother you? LGZ, it bothers him. What's up, James? Christian, what's good? Treasure, good to see you in here. Rob said that does not bother him. Kenneth says that doesn't bother him. He's trying to get his son's jobs as ACs. That makes a lot of sense. Mick says it doesn't faze him. LJ, you're a pretty easygoing guy. Not a whole lot gets you fired up, which I like. Great comments to young men at another Catholic school. Would you consider, though, LSU a Catholic school? It's predominantly Catholic. There's Catholic players on the team. Jack Besh, he shared his Catholic faith on this channel. Not sure if they paid him. Number one, he doesn't need the money. And number two, coaches have egos, right? Don't think he got his ego stroked from getting to speak to players, right? Coaches love that. That's why they get into the profession. And for Ed Orgeron, we know this to be true. That was his favorite part of coaching. It wasn't the actual football coaching. It really was speaking to young men and connecting to them, whether it be recruiting or pregame speeches. That's what he's always going to be known for anyway, right? So we get to our first super chat here. I'll give back to Ed Orgeron. Scott, thank you so much for the generous super chat. I actually don't have the photo loaded up here, but Scott, if you guys saw our film study earlier this week, is the grandson of Charlie Mack, right? Speaking of former coaches. And Scott also joined the PHL T-shirt club. Okay? What's good, Brett? Good to see you. So everyone throw some clap emojis for Scott dropping a big 50 burger. I really needed it too, right? I really did, because I'm going to New Orleans tomorrow for the Pelicans playoff game. Just got word that I'm going to get to go. My best friend got me a ticket, and I can't wait. I'm actually really excited about it. Okay? Show some love, baby. Skipper, what's good? So Skipper's actually a pretty big Charlie Mack fan. I know this because Skipper is like, he knows way more about old school LSU football than I do. And I'm still learning more. And the cool thing is when you do get a shirt, I have a bunch of vintage LSU cards. So guess what? I send unopened packs of those cards to you. So if you get a t-shirt, you can ask Scott. He ripped a bunch. And what's really funny about Scott is he what's really interesting is a lot of the cards that I sent him were Charlie Mack players. I love the old school vintage cards. So it was really cool. And I also got to show some love to Bang Hammers. Look at him. So he has the PHL shirt on. I just show so much love to everyone that's wearing the PHL shirt in the photo. So Bang Hammers, not only wearing the PHL shirt, he's also rocking the super rare DJ Chark card. So here's what we're going to do. Actually, I'm not giving away the Kayshawn card. I will at some point when more Kayshawn autos go out there, but I just got it, and it was a gift from a viewer. So tonight, if it's fine with Derek, I'm actually going to give out the other cards that he sent me. Jamal Adams. We also have a Drew Brees Prism. And we also have a Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So there you go. The next person that gets a t-shirt, I'm sending you all three of these. Why not? Skipper got a Billy Cannon card. I don't have any more Billy Cannon cards. Skipper has my last one. But anyway, I'm really excited to talk about potentially the two quarterback system. Now, I'll give you my true thoughts on how I feel about the Ed Orgeron situation. I'll give you one little cliff notes here, right? Because some of you are only able to stay for a little bit. It does bother me a little bit. It really does. And I'll share why in just a second. The first thing, though, is will LSU run a two quarterback system this year? I do think that they will. I do. And here's why. I think it is going to be really hard for Jaden Daniels to win this job over Miles Brennan. I do. I think what Miles can do in the pocket does open up a lot of what LSU is going to do with their vertical passing game. At the same time, I shared this last night with Blake, and I'll share it with you again here. I do think Jaden's vertical passing has been better in the 11-on-11 than I initially thought. It actually has been pretty good, right? In the 11-on-11 this past weekend, he threw a good 50-50 ball up for grabs that drew a pass interference penalty. It was the right read. He threw a pretty accurate ball to Jure, and Jure mistimed his jump. He threw a pretty good ball to the sideline, and it barely missed BTJ. It was a really difficult throw. It did need to be high and away. And once again, those kind of throws come with chemistry with the wide receivers. So I do think Jaden's throwing has been better. But if you are one of those people that think that Miles Brennan is going to win the job, it is without question that Jaden Daniels is going to get to play with Miles Brennan, simply because I do think Mike is going to want to run quarterback draws, quarterback counters, different types of plays with their quarterback. So I got to say, I do think we will see a 2-quarterback system. I do. I do think, especially if Miles wins the job. If Jaden wins the job, it is very unlikely. It's less likely. I'm an idiot. It's less likely that Jaden wins the job. So, but if this is true right here from SIP-G, they're saying that Miles still not good in the pocket and still not good in third down situations, then Jaden's going to win this job, and it's going to be less likely that you see a 2-quarterback system. But Scott, I have to say this. I also truly believe Garrett Nussmeier, yes, he doesn't make the headlines. Yes, Walker Howard took all the headlines for the touchdown throw to Kyron Lacy. Nuss has looked fine to me, right? He looks about where he should be as a year 2 player. And I do think he's a little bit more in this race than we'll give him credit for. But here's the thing. Quarterback is an all or nothing thing. It's either you have the starter's job or you don't. Only one person gets it. So we'll see. So Scott, hopefully that answers your question. Okay. I'll actually pull up the poll question here. And was Ed Orgeron speaking to Notre Dame players a shot at LSU and Brian Kelly? It's interesting. So many of you said no a minute ago when I did the Y or N thing, but the poll results tell a different story. Very interesting. I think so too, Danny. I think one thing we tend to forget, that the best quarterback wide receiver connections that we've ever had oftentimes involved a great deal of chemistry, right? It's rare that you have Tom Brady to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. It's great in year 1. It's rare that you have Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp great in year 1. But those guys did work a lot immediately when the transaction happened. So they were able to develop that chemistry. And Danny makes a really, really good point here. The more time Jaden gets with the wide receivers, the better he's going to be. I never played quarterback. I sure as heck never played wide receiver. But I've got to say this, right? The bottom line is this. The only way you get better with quarterback and wide receiver reps is repetition, right? You saw how much an extra year Joe, Jamar, Terrace, and Justin, they were all together for more than a year. The same thing is true for Matt. Right out of the gate, he had a full year to work with Odell and Jarvis and Kadron Boone, right? So a lot of the best connections in LSU history happen over the course of time, happen with more experienced players. So Jaden, once again, just a few weeks ago, less than a month ago, was moving to Baton Rouge. So it's very important to keep that in mind. So big shout out, Lyle just joined the PHL T-shirt club. Congratulations to you, Lyle. Shoot me an email at powerhourlsu@gmail.com. And I cannot wait. I do want to shout out LJ. I hope your ankle does get better. LJ just went through a nasty ankle surgery. Um, I know how ugly those can get, right? Hope you feel better. I do. But, it is kind of crazy, right? The way you can tell if chemistry actually matters is if you go look at the best quarterback and wide receiver duos and you watch every throw that they make, the absolute most prolific ones are oftentimes throws that require the absolute most precise timing, right? Stuff that only can happen if you have chemistry. It's so tough to really explain without actually having film in front of you. Um, so yeah, and that's the thing, as far as Walker Howard's touchdown pass to Kyron Lacy, that was pitch and catch, right? Um, Throwing a go route, any quarterback and receiver can do that. That's not taken away from them, but they would even tell you that. What you would like to see in the spring game, though, is perfectly timed balls through windows. A three-step drop, throw it to a crossing route, those kind of things. So you'll see that hopefully over time. But yeah, once again, thanks to Scott. Thanks again to Lyle. There's Mark. He switched his photo to a PHL t-shirt. Gotta love it. Yeah, obviously the greatest of all time. Peyton and Marvin, the greatest connection in the history of the sport, right? Well, actually, no. I mean, I guess you would say Brady and Moss or Young and Montana, but still Peyton and Marvin. As far as pure numbers, it's nuts. But yeah. Scott Max, super chat. Ed is a complete buffoon. Brady, Joe Insminger, and Aranza won that natty. Will Muschamp could have coached that team. What Ed did is unforgivable in terms of how he left the team. Let him gump at Notre Dame. We just get a super chat here. From Jason here. He wants to talk some Cardell Thomas. Cardell looking good, just saying. Walker's looking good, though. Apparently had a rough period to start practice to the media. But then again, I read a practice report from Go247 before coming on here. And Matthew Brune said that Walker switched from the hard count to the actual clapping to snap the football today because of his hand injury. So that's obviously something new for him to work on. Yeah, I'm not going to call Ed a complete buffoon, but here's what I'll say about today. Okay. The first thing is big time head coaches all have egos. They just do, especially if you win a national championship, right? Most national championship winning head coaches, if you notice, immediately go into the media, right? They immediately have to be a part of something. Okay. So obviously a big example of this is Lou Holtz, Urban Meyer, even Nick Saban. You'll see him do media stuff. Gene Chizik on the SEC network. So coaches, when they have that level of fame, it's tough to not be in front of a camera, right? We saw Ed Orgeron at Miami. His son Cody just got a coaching job at Miami. So I do think a lot of what happened today was Ed Orgeron potentially setting up coaching opportunities for not only himself, but his sons down the road. But here's my thing about it, right? You go speak to the team. You know when, first off, I would like clarification whether or not Ed Orgeron was asked by Notre Dame to do this, or did he volunteer to do it? That is something that I can't quit thinking about. Matt Fortuna, who covers Notre Dame at the Athletic, I think I read his Twitter earlier, and he said that Ed Orgeron was invited. So if Ed Orgeron was invited, it doesn't make it look as petty, as you would initially think, right? This was Notre Dame getting back at Brian Kelly for what he said last week. However, Ed Orgeron, last I checked, is part of the buyout agreement was him still speaking on behalf of LSU during the course of the buyout, if I'm not mistaken. That might have just been towards the end of last year. I don't know what exactly all entails in that agreement. So that's what's kind of strange, because I thought Ed was still a part of LSU during, I don't know exactly what the contract language says. So if you are, then are you allowed to go speak to other teams? The second thing is you go speak to the team who is head coached by the guy that jilted you at the very last second for the Notre Dame job. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I just don't. Like, I don't know if I could do that. Because Marcus Freeman said no to Ed Orgeron, right? That person saying no to you and yes to Notre Dame was the one thing that changed his career. Because if Marcus Freeman had gone to LSU, we probably still would have run man coverage on every play, and he would not be a head coach of a top 10 job right now. So Marcus Freeman's career changed by saying no to LSU at the last second. The whole thing is just really strange, knowing the history of Orgeron and Freeman. I'm sure they're still close. Coaches are a fraternity. They're always looking out for each other. When you reach a certain elite status, which Freeman has reached now being the head coach of Notre Dame, you look out for each other, right? So once again, it's not the absolute worst thing, but the speech was weird. And I will also say this: if I'm an LSU player who was recruited to LSU by Notre Dame, and Ed was telling them, hey, look, you're at the best job, best institution, you can win national championships after I leave, and then I hear that giving a pep talk to someone else, I don't know how I would feel about that. So I don't know. The whole thing is just, it's more strange than anything, and it shows you the dramatic, petty nature of college football. But yeah, it's whether or not you thought it was not a big deal or whatever, it does seem strange, right? Especially considering, like, for instance, Brian Kelly was a winning head coach before Notre Dame. LSU did everything for Ed Orgeron's career. He was a very successful defensive line coach before he became the head coach at LSU. There's no doubt about it. He's one of the best to ever do that. But, LSU made who he is, and Ed is LSU in many ways. It's the face of the program, right? And he's still beloved in Louisiana. And instead, you go speak to at the employer of the last head coach. I don't know. I just don't see the real upside for Ed in that scenario, other than, if his sons take a job there or if he's getting ready to take a job there. But yeah, and this is a good question right here from Big Daddy. I just don't think I just don't think he's going to take a job there, right? I think that's it as well, right? And Bomani Jones had a thing this weekend. I haven't got to watch it yet. The number one thing that is plaguing coaching and getting into the industry is nepotism, right? There's so many NFL offensive coordinators, assistants, and all of that have the jobs that they have because of their dads and their dad's friends and their dad's brothers and cousins and all of that. The coaching industry is a very nepotism oriented thing. And look, a lot of LSU coaches that are on staff now got their starts because of nepotism as well. So it's all littered throughout the industry. And once you get to a certain status, you want your kids who want to get in the industry to also have that same opportunity, right? Because your last name does carry a lot of weight, wherever you are, right? It's crazy. I might be LJ. I might be. Uh, like I said, it's not something that just drives me insane. I'm still just trying to understand what exactly happened. I'm so curious to see because I love the pettiness of college football. I think it's one of the things that make it great. Don't get it twisted. The main reason I watch college football is because I love the sport of football in and of itself. But part of what makes college football is this drama, right? It's really, really, really funny. So yeah, really. The LJ wants to talk about some Cardell. I'm totally down about it. Tyler's back for Venmo trivia. I'm really excited about it. Look at this. Other than doing a Tuesday live stream every Tuesday for the last 2 years, I don't know what you guys did to deserve a Tuesday live stream. So yeah, let's put up a new poll question here. All right. LJ, your poll question's up for Cardell Thomas. What's up, Cliff? Good to see you. But I'll tell you this. Harris. No, in Paris, it's okay. Coach K's done. We're not talking about Tyler Steen during this live stream. I'll say this. If I get a super chat about Tyler Steen, I'll talk about him. Don't really want to spend time about that, though, today. So here's my thing about Cardell starting, okay? So today, the first team were the two transfers at guards, right? It was Tremont Shorts and Miles Frazier. I'm fine with a Miles Frazier, Cam Wire starting right side. I actually think that's what the right side of your offensive line is going to look like next year. And I'd actually put it at a pretty high percentage that is how the right side of the offensive line is going to be lined up next year. Number one, Cam Wire starting experience. And number two, Miles Frazier's just playing experience. But what I would say is potentially those two might flip. I could see Miles Frazier ended up being the right tackle and Cam Wire being the right guard. That's in fact how I would line them up. Now, once again, I'm not at practice every day. We're still learning more about Miles Frazier, but I do like that right side. All the other positions are up in the air outside of Will Campbell solidifying this left tackle starting job, especially now that Tyler Steen's not coming. I think we have a decent idea of what the right side is going to look like. I also think Will Campbell right now might be as sure of a bet as anyone to start at left tackle. But then Danny brings up all these fan clubs in here. I'm the president of the hashtag Stop Charles Turner for Center and Bad Snaps Now. Could be. But as of right now, he's your starting center, right? So now you got to figure out what your left guard and your center is going to be. Cardell at left guard is very interesting because he's played more at right guard. Can he beat out Tremont Shorts for left guard? I think he can. Can Miles Frazier move to left guard? He's wearing Ed Ingram's jersey, by the way. Jersey number. Can he move to left guard and Cardell play right guard? That's a very plausible thing as well. Right? So I would say, why not? Yes to Cardell starting next year. But that battle is going to be really, really heated. So we'll see. Danny and her fan club presidentes. I love it. So once again, Lau, just join the T-shirt club. Shoot me an email, powerhourlsu@gmail.com. This is LJ says, Danny, look. Look out. Frazier's been playing a lot. He was all throughout our last couple of film studies, actually. I love LSU football. I love you guys. It's so cool getting to chat about LSU football on a Tuesday night. So look, there's the truth is, this is why I really do think LSU football is the best, right? It's a good mix of being an all-time great program, which LSU is. It's a top 10 program ever, but it's also a good mix of drama, right? Like, for instance, and it goes back to my buddy T-Bob. He had a good rant about this, right? About, is it really fun to win at Alabama anymore? Like, do you know how excited we would have been if Tyler Steen had picked LSU? He picks Bama, and it's just more the same. In fact, I don't know if you guys saw this today, but a wide receiver from Louisville who is tweeting out a bunch of stuff saying how excited he is to play for Louisville next year, which returns their quarterback, Malik Cunningham. He all of a sudden enters the transfer portal. And Louisville's best insider, it's a radio host named Mark Innes, is like, guys, we got to stop the Bama tampering. We got to. So Saban's about to get himself another wide receiver if Mark's predictions are true. Is that really any fun, though? Is it really any fun? No. It's fun being an LSU fan. right? We have a connection with the state of Louisiana. And by the way, for my fellow Matthew Langlois fanboys out there, and there's quite a few of you, I'm rocking it, baby. My New Roads, Louisiana Mardi Gras shirt. So, there you go. Now, Cliff, I agree with you. I would like to reach that destination. But at the same time, I want to be excited about the top transfer portal tackle coming to my university. Tyler Steen joining Alabama does nothing for them. But it would have done everything for us. We need offensive line help. So it is what it is. Yeah, Paris, I'm glad you're calling me out on this because I do miss on some projections. I actually thought Derek Davis Jr. was going to be really good. It's not over yet, though, right? But at this point, it does look like it's a long shot. Now, I was really high on Matthew Langlois as well, but it looks like if there were one of those guys starting next year, it looked like it would be Matthew at this point. But I thought DDJ was going to be really good, and he still could be, right? But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do think LSU needs to look into this, though, Pearson. I'm glad you brought this up. It could just be a recent sample, but, LSU's had good out-of-state safeties, right? So John Battle was from Florida. He was a really good player. And then Jamal Adams. But there's a lot of really good safeties that they've gotten out of state that just haven't really panned out, right? So, Jordan Tolles is I think he's moved to corner, and then you have Derek Davis Jr., which is kind of shocking that he's not battling for more starters reps right now. You have Maurice Hampton not work out. You had Eric Monroe, who was a top 50 player, not work out. So you see, it's a pretty extensive list of this. Now, Grant Delpit, IMG Academy, Houston, but there's a lot of Louisiana ties there. Jacoby Stevens worked out, but is he one of the best safeties ever? Might be. He might be a top 10 safety at LSU. Maybe. So it's very interesting. Oh, it's all good, Paris. I know you're calling me out. I get it, Paris. You miss you've missed the last few live streams. And Paris was like, let me pull up a prediction Carter did not get right. I totally get it. I also thought Mo Hampton was going to be really good as well. But then again, some of that was also him playing in the absolute worst scheme to be a safety, right? It's not fun playing the role of safety if the quarterback knows where you're going to be lined up on every play. And Golden Boot says it perfectly right here. How much of the not working out was on the coaching staff? A lot of it was on that, right? I cannot say this enough. It's hard to play defensive back when the quarterback knows what you're going to do, right? So there's a really good viral clip, and I referenced it. Actually, I cut this part out of yesterday's video, so I'll touch on it. I'm glad you brought this up, Golden Boot. There's a really good clip of C.J. Stroud. Now, once again, C.J. Stroud is on a different level of quarterbacking than any of the guys that we currently have. I hope that changes. But C.J. Stroud talked about how he processes a defense, and and most quarterbacks do this. They start with looking at where the safeties are, right? Well, if your safeties do very similar things and they know the coverage that you're probably going to run, it makes a quarterback's job a lot easier, which is why Bo Nix, who cannot read a defense, was able to dominate us 2 years in a row. Will Levis, who is not a good thrower, was able to dominate us. A lot of bad quarterbacks were able to dominate us. So, I defend a lot of defensive backs, and even to a lesser extent, I don't want to get into a debate about this young man because we've talked about him so much. You can kind of see why Derek Stingley was not gung-ho about playing in a defense that ran those kind of coverages, especially if you're the son of a coach, right? Roger, thank you for the super chat. I really do appreciate you. Yeah, Reed, I don't think Amarius Mims is happening. I'd be interested if it's, closer to the season and you want to just use a slot up. But it did seem Brian Polian. Now I haven't listened to Brian Kelly's latest press conferences, like really closely, but I did listen to Brian. I did listen to Brian Kelly. I haven't gotten to listen to Mike Denbrock. I'm going to tomorrow on the way to New Orleans. Polian is like one of the recruiting coordinators, and it did seem in his press conference that they are looking for immediate contributors, right? So, Amarius Mims, he's a 5-star tackle. Is he worth the slot in the long term? Yeah, he probably is. But at the same time, why would you not just I don't know if you redshirted last year. I don't know why you just wouldn't play out this year. Why did you have to enter the portal right now? That would be my question, right? Especially now. Like, for instance, if you're trying to establish a new culture, and this was also a big story at another program, Texas. So there was a player who had a very colorful quote. I thought it was really good about Texas players buying in, right? I thought it was just a normal, good quote. Sark went nuts today at the media session saying he should have kept that in house and whatever. He didn't like go off, but it was kind of strange how he handled that. When you're trying to build, a championship culture, you really do have to evaluate who you're actually bringing into the program, right? How much do they really want to buy into what you're doing? It's important. It is. And unless you start winning, none of that matters. So, I don't know Mary Sims. I don't know anything about him. But, if he can't help you this next year, how hard is he going to want to get after it right now? So we'll see. Carter looks like the dude who buys a Harley in his midlife crisis. Huh? 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 Why am I in a midlife crisis though? Life is great, Rain. Liverpool is winning like crazy. We tied Manchester City this past weekend. Did you hear that, Cliff? Big Al there, 85 doesn't count the same. You know this. Dang, Danny and Paris are just coming after me. Carter doesn't even have a car. Dang, Danny. Dang. You are that's wild. And he can't even balance his girly line beer on a motorcycle, but he's our favorite LSU. I gotta show Haley this. 3 put downs in one sentence. I love it. Carter doesn't have a car. He can't even balance on a motorcycle with his girly line beard. And he's a nerd. I love it. It's so good. Thank you, King Robert. Appreciate you. I love it. Oh, man. It goes a long way. If Paris is like, dang, Danny. Now Paris is going to up her insult game. Thank you, Danny. Thank you. Nice save. Danny said, of course, you're way too cool to own a car. Good save. Other than the fact that I wish I had a car. Okay, so Jared, this actually is pretty funny. That would be what a Southern mother would say. Bless his heart. It's so good. It really is. I love it. So right now, Cardell Thomas, 42-58 in favor of no. Will he start next year? 58 his jersey number, of course. What's up, Brendan Caldwell? One of our golden band from Tigerland PHLers. Gotta love it. FSU will be here pretty soon. Look at this real quick. Let me see. I just sent you an email. Gotta love it. Getting new PHL t-shirt club members. It goes a long way. Bless his heart. I can't get over that. I got to say, I will say this. It's a battle between Jared and Big Al as the funniest people on the channel. Greg's pretty funny too. He's not in here tonight. But yeah, I gotta love it. Gotta love it. Thank you, Jared, for the super chat. Dwayne Official, moving up in the world. Keep doing your thing. No, you keep doing your thing, man. I gotta say, Dwayne Official is moving up in the Avi, touching the win bar. It's a pretty magical place. I highly recommend doing the Tiger Stadium tour because I do think the coolest part of Tiger Stadium is touching that win bar, right? So let's get technical here. What's up, Urban? Can you help me understand the difference between the house defense with the standing jack buck linebacker versus a traditional 3-4? So Matt House does essentially run a traditional 3-4. It's just the outside linebacker is called the jack. Now, is he more of a defensive lineman than he is a linebacker? You could make that case. So yeah, and it's not really a 3-4. It's more of a like 3-3-5, but really it's a 4-2-5 with the standing jack. Some people call it a bandit in. It just depends on your terminology, right? So it's in terms of personnel, BJ works with Matt House. That's his primary coach. So he is technically a linebacker if your primary coach is the linebacker's coach. but you're on the line of scrimmage with the other defensive linemen. So you really are a hybrid, like you're a mixture, right? Uh, so that's essentially it. So it's honestly is very traditional. Now there's different variations of the reason why I don't call it 3-3-5 is because to most high school coaches, a very common defense is a 3-3-5 stack where you do have three defensive linemen and the third linebacker, and just the three linebackers are legit stacked behind the other three. So that's why I don't call it a 3-3-5 because that's a whole different thing. And the guy who really started the 3-3-5 stack actually just passed away. He was a Mississippi State coach. He was a big proponent of running that defense. It's a defense that Mississippi State's current defense coordinator, Zach Arnett, does a lot of. West Virginia has run that variation of the defense. So it is what LSU's doing is technically a 3-3-5, but it's not like a 3-3-5 stack. Now, once again, I know I do a lot of film breakdowns. I am not a coach. So there are smarter people to break this down than me. But that's my understanding of it, and that's how I apply it, right? So as far as I understand, like for some people, they just like football. They don't love all the minutia terminology. I think a lot of you are diehard football fans. You do find this stuff to be very interesting. That's why when I'm doing film studies, I just try to be as general as I possibly can. Like we don't get into levels and doubles and all these different terms, the money linebacker and all that stuff. That's where it gets crazy. And then also that gets over my head, right? So for instance, someone who is a fan of the channel sent me Kirby Smart's defensive playbook, and I was not smart enough to understand it and smart enough to read it. I can understand some of the stuff, but if you actually looked at a defensive playbook, you see a lot of terms like MOF, which stands for middle of the field, right? So if you're the middle of the field defender, you pick up the first middle of the field route. Middle of the field also could mean a lot of different things, though. Sometimes MOF means you're just technically playing the middle of the field. Sometimes that means it's telling you to be the robber. It's different, right? So, as far as Matt House's 3-4, it is a very traditional variation of how you think a 3-4 defense is, except the fourth linebacker is the nickel defensive back. So it is more of a 3-3-5 in terms of personnel, but not so much a 3-3-5 defense in a 3-3-5 stack. So, yeah. But the bottom line is this, and I think your question here, Cliff, has more to do with the jack linebacker role, right? You've got to have a dude there, right? The jack linebacker has got to be a dude. I don't think you can just be somebody and have this defense be successful, right? So I think for me, let's go back to Chason, right? You saw Chason just never really got taken off the field. And the more I realize it, the more I understand that, well, he's one of the most important people on the field, right? So there weren't a whole lot of people on LSU's team that could play that role. It's a really difficult role, right? Because it's a mixture of being a pass rusher, coverage guy, run edge setter, playmaker. There's a lot of different things you have to do. So if BJ starts slow, or if he's not making 1,000 different plays at once, it's hard. There's not many Chasons and Will Andersons and those kind of players that are out there. So yeah. And that then leads into Harold Perkins. Okay. Talked about Harold Perkins some last night. I talked about Harold Perkins a lot on this channel. I think he's going to play a lot more next year than we probably think. I also think the pathway for him to get on the field is going to be a lot easier than people think, just because of how special of an athlete he is. So, and this is also key as well. That 2018 LSU team was really good. You lose Chase on, it's a different team. That's a good point, Sip. That could have been the difference obviously we weren't beating Bama that year, but that could have been the difference in the Florida game or the A&M game. It's really hard. It's a really, really hard defensive role to do, right? Yeah. So once again, I have very basic knowledge of this stuff. I've also never called a play in my life. I've put a headset on before, never called a play in my life. So it could be very complex, but the most important thing to know is that you got to have dudes, right? And for the Madhouse defense to really be great, you go look at his defensive success. He had really special players in other defenses that weren't as good, right? So most famously, he had Aaron Donald his first year as a defensive coordinator at Pitt. Madhouse only had one really good year as a defensive coordinator, and it was when he had Josh Allen, who played the B.J. Ojolari role, and he was a monster for Kentucky. They also had two other really good draft picks at defensive back on that defense, but Allen really made that defense special. So obviously, this is going to be BJ's last year regardless. I think he's going to the NFL. He went to the Combine this year just to check it out, and this is his money year. So I hope. But we'll see. But yeah, as you age, you start to really appreciate Chase on. More film studies. So I'm glad you brought this up as well, Cliff. I am traveling tomorrow. I don't know what the plan is for Thursday night for the live stream, because I am going to be spending some time in Baton Rouge on Thursday. So I don't know if I'm going to be back in time to do a live stream. So what we might do for the Thursday night live stream is I might do it from Tiger Stadium again. I had so much fun doing it. I don't think I'll make it. I'll let you guys know for sure. I don't think though. I don't think it's going to be as cold. I don't. Yeah, so I'll move on, but I'll finish up with this, right? So I might have missed it, but what is the overall defensive scheme? I know it's 3 down linemen, okay, but with 4 linebackers or a 3-3 stack with the nickel, you're kind of close, okay. So the way it's going to line up is you're going to have 3 defensive linemen, okay. More than likely, those 3 defensive linemen are going to be a combination of Ollie Gay, Mason Smith, Jaquelin Roy, and Jacoby and Guillory, right? Now, Ollie Gay is not going to play the nose, and Guillory is more than likely not going to play the edge opposite Ojolari, if that makes sense, right? Mason Smith and Jacoby and Guillory can play any one of those 3. BJ Ojolari is probably going to be your standing outside linebacker who more than often stands at the line of scrimmage, okay? So essentially, it's a four-man front, but one of those players is technically a linebacker. Ojulari works mostly with Matt House. Your two linebackers are probably going to be Mike Jones and somebody else. Will that be Baskerville? Will that be Wes Weeks? Will that be Greg Penn? We'll see. And then your nickel is probably going to be Greg Brooks, but it's going to be some defensive back, whether it's Greg Brooks or Sage Ryan. And your two outside traditional corners in the mold of Daryl Simon, Patrick Peterson, Mo Claiborne, Derek Stingley, Converse, Gardner, whoever else. And then you're going to have two traditional safeties, right? Best guess at this point, it'll probably be Jay Ward and Joe Fouché. And there's different rules for different defenses, right? But we'll get more into that. I know during a live stream, it's not the best way to explain it. We'll see. Yeah, Tracy, I guess the weather is signed up to be pretty bad. Swing by Saturday, we'll boil a sack and have some beers. I'm down for some crawfish. So I'm not gonna lie, I know you guys love my food escapades. So I went to a crawfish boil this past weekend, and I don't know. I've had these people's crawfish before, and it was really spicy and really good. But because it was a big group of people, they overcompensated for no spice, and the crawfish had no flavor. It just didn't taste like anything. And I was like, it's one thing if y'all aren't good at boiling crawfish. It's another thing, though, that you guys were pleasing the masses instead of spicing those MFs, right? Spice it up. If people can't handle it, they can go have a salad. Spice those mother effers up. That'd be very nice. But LJ, I'm glad you brought this up, right? Smith needs to be Dorsey good. So Glenn Dorsey was a playmaker at defensive tackle. Kind of rare, right? There's not many of those kind of guys out there anymore. And I do think Mason Smith can be that. But at the same time, sometimes if you are of just this elite athleticism and you are a playmaker defensive tackle, it can get you into a playmaking mode that can get you out of position, right? Where you're catching blocks, your run fits can get a little sloppy, and even Ed Orgeron said that some last year about Mason. So we'll see. I hope he's Dorsey good, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot that he's going to have to learn because he is playing in a new scheme. Now, the good news, if you are a big Mason Smith fan, is this is the actual position he played in high school. So we'll see. I hate dusted crawfish. Fight me. Yeah, it's true, Pegasus, right? So I'm actually glad you brought this up as well. So once again, I know some of you are just joining us. We're getting a bunch of new viewers according to the analytics I have here. So if there's any topic you want to get to, once again, I'm just kind of freelancing here. If you're new to a live stream, if you guys want to talk about anything specific, feel free to super chat and I'll go straight to it. If you want to talk more general SEC, what I think could happen in the transfer portal over the next week, feel free to super chat. So there you go. I'm glad you brought this up, Pegasus, though, because he says here, if history tells us anything, Mason will dominate leading into all the hype for his junior year, and that's anybody's guess. Right. I'll say this. I have gained, the same way we gained respect for Jason, I have gained more respect for two players, right? Actually, no, actually two players, right? And that's Jamal Adams and Patrick Peterson, because both of them were dominant all 3 years of their career at LSU. Right out of the gate, they were difference makers. And they, knowing that they were first round picks before their junior season, still continued that pattern of excellence and still solidified both of them as top 15 picks. And knowing what we know now about, severe junior fall offs for a lot of guys, you do begin to respect that a lot more, because it is hard to stay focused on the day by day college life, knowing that your next thing is something that's actually going to transform your family's lives. And those guys did it for teams that quickly didn't have, well, we're pretty good in 2010, but the team, Jamal's case, our national championship aspirations were shot pretty quickly. And those guys still, didn't complain, just put out elite numbers. Devin White as well. He had 2 years of excellence. Second year, he was better than what he was the year before. You do gain a lot of respect for those guys. You really do. Let's see here. I have figured out, though, that mushrooms are the best thing in a crawfish bowl outside of the crawfish. I used to not be a believer. I'm a believer. Mushrooms are next level. Better than potatoes, definitely better than corn in a crawfish mix. Definitely. Like, I don't even think about it. It's not even close. It's not even close. There you go. We'll put that one up for a little bit. Artichoke. Foggy bottom. Artichoke. Let's see. The artichokes. I'm kind of interested in the artichokes. Yeah, Sib, it's kind of funny how that works, right? In Paris, like, so actually, this was when the channel wasn't as big, right? In 2020, and in that off season, I took a lot of heat for saying, "Hey, I know we were just 5-5, but there was a lot of red flags, such as barely winning those games when you had such a huge turnover battle win." And I was still just so shocked at, our defensive scheme. And it's weird, Sip, that the Eli Ricks pick six was obviously Eli just making a superstar play, but that play we actually switched up our coverage. We ran something called a box coverage where the inside corner is looking to make a jump on the ball, which is why we put Rick's in the slot on that play. We did a film study of that pick six like over a year ago. But outside of that, it was just a bunch of them making mistakes, right? Some were lucky ricochets, but still. It is nuts that we were still able to go 5-5 with how that roster ended up. I know we focused so much at the end of this past year having 39 players. And I know with the Rona and everything, but still, we barely had 50 guys. It was such a strange year. And I give credit for winning those last couple of games, but dear Lord, we really struggled. We gave up 7 yards per play in 8 games out of 10, and 7 is cartoonishly high. I still can't believe it. I still can't believe that even happened. And yeah, we're really bad. We're really bad. And we'll see. We'll see. But, you learn from the past, you build for the future. Appreciate you, LSU 4321. I love when I get this comment. I do. Corn, potato, sausage? It's too basic. Every crawfish boil has corn, potato, sausage. Not until the summer. Once again, it's one of those things where if we were playing a game today, I'm not sure if he would be healthy because, broken ankle and surgery, it's gruesome. But they wouldn't be as cautious, right? And that's just with any injury. More than likely, he wouldn't be able to play, but still, that's why you're just super cautious. Like, for instance, according to Brody Miller, Ojolari and Besh weren't in there, but Mike Denbrock said in his press conference, I didn't get to listen, but I was able to see a tweet that they weren't. They were actually stripping down some of the offense to no longer worrying about install, but more so worried about the basics. So there you go. What up? Shout out to Black OT and his lovely wife D. Here's something that I hate. So like Black OT and D went to the game in Pasadena earlier this year. Jared did as well. I hate that you guys flew all the way out there just for us to do exactly what we did in 2020. I still can't get over that, right? Because that venue is still the coolest venue to watch a college football game outside of watching LSU in Death Valley or LSU in the Superdome. It's so cool. It really is, right? Danny's calling my Zima drinking basic. Really? How many people do you see drinking Zima? The thing I hate about it, Danny, it's like everyone's actually going to think I drink Zima. I've actually never even tasted a Zima before. So Black OT says crawfish side is beer. My beer of choice is Corona. Let me ask you this. With your Corona, do you absolutely positively have to have a lime? Do you? Dang it. So no Zion tomorrow. Breaking news. King Robert, there he is. Ladies and Gentiles, King Robert. Y'all show King Robert some clapping emojis. Try texting him. It's been super busy. We love you, man. Keep fighting, my brother. King Robert is back. The best. You guys know how I get when King Robert's in the chat. It's my guy. Huh? Rob is coming after your Corona. You have to have a lime to kill that stink bug taste. Look, everybody gets excited for King Robert. Paris, Robert, Mick. Love it. Good question, Corey. I'm gonna go. I really do think it's neck and neck right now. I'm gonna go Miles. Why not? Miles first half, Jaden second half. Why not? I do think the spring game's gonna go a long way. I really do. Show King Robert some love. Yeah, Robert, check your text, my brothers. Yeah, Danny, Tyler was in here earlier. But yeah. No, Corey, thank you for your super chat, man. Feel free to drop a few more of those, my friend. But the truth is, you guys know this already. Wouldn't be here at that King Robert. It's a big reason why we're here right now. We're able to move to a new house. Good to see you, Robert. But yeah, Foggy Bottom, here's something that, and once again, we won't go too deep into this yet again, but Harold Perkins is more than likely, especially in year one, is more than likely not going to play those like he's not going to play the Mike Jones position, right? Where he was at his best. And honestly, this is a more vital position in the defense to me, is lining up over a tackle and just making plays. So doing what BJ Ojolari does, right? I just think, year one, that's where he's going to be his best. It's very important to keep this in mind. And I do think this was, part of Sage's development in year one. In high school, in high school, Sage Ryan played his bigger role on defense was playing offense, right? He carried the football a lot. Whereas the same thing is true of Harold Perkins. In high school, his main role over the course of the game was to get the football and score, right? So last year, Harold Perkins had 35 total tackles. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at his rushing statistics, you see why, right? So it's there's going to be a development phase, but I do think, Paris has been putting down on me all night. I do think the more likely scenario is Harold Perkins is going to do the Marcel Brooks thing, right? You mix them in. Jacob, you've had perfect attendance recently on our live streams. I really do appreciate it. I think this is going to be your most likely scenario. And Marcel Brooks, I like Harold Perkins, was this hybrid athlete, pass rusher, 5-star linebacker type that could play a bunch of different positions. It's a good question here from Corey with a patriotic photo. Look at you. Yes, I think he'll win one, right? And I'm going to give the cliche answer. The last 3 have won them. So why can't it be 4 in a row? Cauliflower? Alan, good question. So actually, I didn't change the thumbnail because today my focus was going to be the big story, which was Tyler Steen picking LSU over Alabama, or Alabama over LSU. However, that changed when the Ed Orgeron Notre Dame clip made its rounds. And that obviously, changes. That's college football for you. That's news cycles for you, right? So whenever I do a live stream, the topic can say one thing earlier in the day, but if there's a breaking news story, it's going to be something else. I've never had cauliflower in the boil. So Brett and Cliff, both of y'all live in BR. We got to throw down. I love how it's like Michael B has just been saying this the whole time. He's saying, "Oh, I've never heard of mushrooms in a boil. I've never tried artichoke in the boil. I've never tried cauliflower in the boil." So the next time Michael has a crawfish boil, he's just going to throw every last little thing. It's just going to be a bunch of crap and crawfish in the boil. Michael is just going to throw all of it. You guys right now could say, have you ever had shoe in a boil? Like, have you ever just thrown your Nike in there? It soaks up a lot of seasoning. Got to give it a try. Got to suck. All right, Mick, we will see you, and Big Al will see you as well. So there you go. Well, since I got to get up early tomorrow, we will cut this a little bit short. However, as we always do at the end of every live stream, the most important thing is getting to your questions. As you guys see, when the live stream numbers get up to over 60, really, but when they get up to 100, I can't get to every question. I like to introduce new people, but I'll get to as many LSU questions as I possibly can. However, if you super chat, we'll keep going if the super chats keep going. So I want to shout out our top super chatters. As always, it's King Robert. He's always holding down that number one spot. I also want to shout out Scott McClendon. He also dropped a $50 super chat as well tonight. I really do appreciate it. I also want to shout out Lyle. He joined the PHL T-shirt club. And in last place, I want to shout out Paris and Danny for absolutely destroying my soul. I love it. So yeah. Hey, I put a few eggs in there. Eggs. I think so too, Sip. And we actually did see separation from the last spring game, not only at the top, but at the bottom as well. And once again, it's not just a spring game evaluation. This is also something else that's very important, right? There is more that you don't know about what's happening than you do know. Bless your heart, Carter. Huh? Paris, no, I like it, right? You guys know Haley. You know she's sassy. So I'm used to it, right? I don't mind it. I used to do comedy. Have you ever hung out with comedians late at night? It's all you do is rib each other. So once you've gone through that and you've been called every last little thing you could think of, it doesn't really mean anything. Charlie was good. Truly on bourbon. I'll say this. So one of my buddies from Chicago, went to New Orleans this past weekend, and he actually has like a lot of money. So he did like every touristy thing. He got the permits and did the second line. I just don't know if doing a second line on a bachelor's party would be a lot of fun. Like me and 6 other dudes. No, I don't think that's worthy of a second line. But it's good for you got to get the permits. It's good for the city. But like he did the swamp. He did swamp tours. He toured Louisiana. Bought like hurricanes and all that stuff. It is crazy, right? How bourbon is such a touristy thing. I haven't been to bourbon in so long now. I don't know if I'm really missing it all that much. Chris says, I've been quiet tonight, having to tend to the hedgehog. How much does a spring game matter? Isn't the last row scrimmage the last practice before? Potentially, yeah. I mean, obviously, each scrimmage in terms of importance is more important as you move throughout spring, right? Always the most important thing, though, in the spring, though, is don't get hurt. No, some of that's true, old vet, but the truth is the honest truth is Max's inaccuracies were actually there in 2020. You just didn't know it because the Florida game got a little chaotic, and the Ole Miss game, his accuracy was all over the place. It was a big reason why Ole Miss was able to get back into that game. So yeah, some of it is perception, but you're talking about Nuss. I'll say this: the sample was really small. I also do think this is true about Nuss. He's a true freshman quarterback. I think the Wildcat call, I think it ruined him. I do for that game. And I know that sounds crazy, but on the drive before, he threw 2 absolute dimes. And then after that, he just fell off a cliff. I just think that call, if you are a believer in momentum, a lot of people don't believe momentum exists. That was such a strange call, right? So I do think that's some of that as well. Shout out to Jason. Never feel guilty about super chatting a 9 spot. It goes a long way, man. Every last little bit counts. I'd feel a lot more comfortable about everything in my life if we had 4 more 9 spots. But tonight, obviously, King Robert and Scott, really stepped up, and Lyle joining the T-shirt club goes a long way. I would say more, but I just bought a new to me car tonight. What is a new to you car? Wouldn't every car be a new to you car unless you pulled a Grand Theft Auto, you took that thing, returned it to the owner after a test drive, and you said, you know what? I like this car. I'm sure that's happened. I wish there was a study done. Did auto thefts go up or down after Grand Theft Auto? Remember when Grand Theft Auto first came out? It was a movement, right? And there's so many people freaking out. There's so much violence. Really? And then everyone's like, all the violence in these video games is leading to violence everywhere. No. But anyway, it was crazy like how big Grand Theft Auto actually was, right? That was before cell phones and all that stuff. It's like still strange to me, right? But that's cool. You got a new car. As Danny pointed out earlier in the live stream, don't have a car. But bro, much love to you and the fam out there in the chat. I'm going to get my beauty sleep. Well, Jason, knowing I still got it right here. You're a mattress expert. Johnny 5 and Gail, what's going on? Olvet, thank you so much. So Olvet super chatted, so we're going to hang out. Johnny 5 always jumping in at the end. So this is Jason with the shirt. That's all good, Olvet. Thank you so much. It really does go a long way. Thank you. Still waiting on a few of you guys to join the shirt club, like Jason and Johnny 5, and of course Danny's part of the T-shirt club. You wouldn't let them play GTA, Danny? I thought you were the cool mom. Well, your son's a Bengals fan, so he was already exposed to a lot of violence early on. Because, they were so bad. But actually, no, I bet you it was kind of cool to be a Bengals fan growing up. Because you had Chad Johnson, Chad Ochocinco. But look, some people don't believe in momentum. Some people say, look, plays happen during the course of a game, And momentum, there's no mathematical equation that shows momentum exists. It goes back and forth all the time. What I would say, though, is I do believe momentum can affect a younger quarterback, especially one playing in his first real game, especially one who had a miraculous throw and after that started throwing dimes, and you call a wildcat. That would send a message to my quarterback saying, well, we don't trust you in the red zone. We're going to take you off the field once you got hot. And then once that turnover happens, you try to overcompensate for it. It was such a bad call. It was actually one of LSU's worst calls of the year in terms of EPA per play lost on a single play. That play actually cost LSU -6 expected points added, which is pretty crazy. I mean, that's a huge, huge shift, if I'm not mistaken. It's huge. Michael, a lot of it was Nuss mistakes, right? He threw a bad pick to Devonta Lee. Also, bad coaching. I didn't understand why Jack Besh was not on the field for that play, if I'm not mistaken. Once again, it lends to itself the wide receiver rotation being a little too wide. Until they were 15, Danny. Huh? Look, I will say GTA was pretty graphic. Now that I think about it, it's like, well, maybe it did glamorize this. Tyler, good to see you. The GOAT of LSU media. It's not me. I appreciate all the spring ball breakdowns. I can't. Okay, so here's why I can't say that I'm the GOAT of all LSU media is because I only focus on LSU football. Now, I will say I am working to get a potential athlete from one of the other sports on the channel who I have a connection with. But, there's so much better, like, overall LSU media. But if it's just LSU football, I'm fine saying that I do a good job of breaking down LSU football. Am I the best, though? I don't know. There's some really good LSU football channels out there. But I appreciate you, Tyler. And I also love the dog. Oh, such a great dog right there. Man, I got to say this, and I know it's going to sound really sappy, but you guys saw this past weekend. Actually, I didn't show photos. I'll show it on an upcoming thing. So I ran a 5K this past weekend, and it was for dog adoption agencies. And I haven't shared this story yet. So my girlfriend's dad's dog I'm really close to, we just had to put her down like this week, and it sucked. Or actually, it was a week before. So it sucked. It really did suck. And that dog was really close to Booger because they always played, and it sucked. So it's amazing, Tyler, like how much I've grown to love dogs, right? Like it's just crazy how much I freaking love doggos. It's like one of my favorite things. And growing up, I used to be scared of them because I just wasn't around them. And I saw the movie Kojo a few times, and I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. So if I even saw like a little dog, I'd be like, no, this dog can mutate into Kojo, thinking that like dogs are like Optimus Prime and they could turn into a Transformer. Yes. Okay. So Johnny Five remembers this. So it wasn't Tartar who passed away. Okay. It was Madeline. And you never saw Madeline because she was a huge dog and we couldn't put her in. So I am happy to report that Tartar, while she is getting up there in age, she's still doing fine. What up, folks? Good to see you, Doc Knock. Well, Danny, if you have any questions, you got my IG. Just hit me up. Out the squeaky markers. Danny, you are coming at me for those squeaky markers. Huh? 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 Yeah, so Terrace in that Vanderbilt game, 2 catches, 67 yards for 2 touchdowns. Ironically, that was his worst game with Miles, which is crazy to think about. He was so dominant with Miles. Like at least 2 touchdowns in every game with Miles. He was 2 for 149 versus Mississippi State with some drops, and then versus Missouri, he was like 8 for 230 something. It was crazy. It was like more than that. It was nuts. And Pegasus, to your point, the red zone touchdown to Terrace was actually not a good throw by Miles. He stared him down the whole way, and the safety actually read it, but Terrace in midair actually redirected his body and got between the safety and made the catch. It's actually probably one of the more underrated Terrace Marshall plays. You don't think of that, in the grand scheme of Terrace's best catches, the Auburn touchdown, the Clemson touchdowns. Obviously, that touchdown's going to be played throughout the course of LSU history. But really, that Vanderbilt touchdown was really special because Miles stared him down the whole way, and the safety made a good play on the ball. It's just Terrace adjusted midway. He felt the safety and made a really good play on it, while at the same time avoiding major contact, and the 2 Vanderbilt defenders actually banged into each other. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing, right? Yeah, I don't mind doing an ebook. I've actually thought about that. It wouldn't be an X's and O's one. I don't feel like I am overly qualified to do that without actually being a coach. But I kind of want to write an LSU football book. More just on my thoughts about certain things that I think are underrated, certain things that I think are overblown about LSU football. Some truths, mythology surrounding the sport. I've shared one of those things before. The 07 LSU offensive line. That group was so good. It was so good. Such an underrated, scrappy, play through injury group of guys. I really, really enjoyed watching them play. Those guys were just Tigers through and through. And none of them made it in the NFL, which is crazy, but they were good. They just really, really played together, and I loved it. And they were big for us. What was so interesting about them is, the one position we think of when you're playing from behind that we think is difficult is the quarterback position. And it is difficult. The quarterback position is the most difficult position in all of sports. But there is a mythology that it's harder to play the quarterback position when you are at a huge deficit. That is not true. In fact, it's the opposite, right? Defenses start playing softer. And look, Matt Flynn was the number one reason why we had so many amazing comebacks that year. But, it kind of gets easier because Les Miles is forced to open up his playbook. The LSU coaches are forced to get more vertical with their offense, which, as we've learned over the years, is that's your major success. That's your most important thing. Can you hit vertical shots offensively? The position that actually gets harder is offensive line when you're down by a huge deficit, because defensive linemen can just tee off on you. They know you're throwing, and they could just bull rush you. They can attack you from so many different ways. They don't have to worry about playing the run, right? So, that offensive line had just some amazing, amazing, amazing pass protections, in those comeback situations in a year where the SEC had really good defensive linemen and they had really good, linebacking cores a year. So, it was such a good unit. Good win for Real. Crazy game versus Chelsea. I didn't get to watch, but I saw like the final score. It's like, goodness gracious. You beat Chelsea. It's kind of hard because I grew up liking so many Chelsea players, but and as a Liverpool fan, you can't like Chelsea. I've never liked their style of play either. But Didier Drogba, all the way now to Christian Pulisic. Shout out to Karim Benzema. He'll never go down with the Lewandowskis and the Messis and the Ronaldos, the Thierry Henrys, but he's, in that next tier, right? He is the Damian Lillard of our soccer era, right? Really, really good, but not, all-time great good. Good stuff. Pels game tomorrow, Pels win. Pels win. That's all you got to know. CJ McCollum hit over, even though it's a tough matchup. Deontay Murray is such a great guard for the Spurs. Pop obviously has, the coaching advantage over everyone in this league. So yeah, Pop, this is just another game for him. Willie Green, all the pressure's on him. So we'll see. I would be a little bit more concerned if this was Willie Green versus Pop in a series, but in a one-game format, and it is so close to like the regular season, even though you do feel the energy, I wouldn't be making this trip tomorrow if it was just a regular season game. The energy is different, but this is more so a regular season game than it is a playoff game. So I do think Willie is in a better spot than if you had to play Pop over a 7-game series, and Pop is arguably he's no less than a top 10 coach in this sport. So I like the Pels. And I like Willie Green a lot as our coach. I think we actually got that one right. A lot better than Stan Van Gundy, who was a disaster. I think Willie's going to be our coach for the next decade. Cheers to you, Willie. I also think, I know I always give one random NBA take at the end of this. I do think the Zaza Pachulia injury on Kawhi Leonard in that series, what was that, 7 or 8 years ago? I actually do believe the Spurs win that series with Kawhi. That was such a bad matchup for those Warriors teams. Kawhi in his real athletic prime, his length, that's the worst matchup for Steph and Clay, right? I'm a Zaza Pachulia conspiracist. I think that did change a lot, right? Karim's won a lot of trophies, but the players you think of on Real Madrid is Modric, Ronaldo, and Ramos. I don't think Karim Benzema when I think Real Madrid, even Toni Kroos, right? Karim has always just kind of not gotten his love. And I think some of it is, the Ruud van Nistelrooy aspect of his play, being like a true number 9. He doesn't have the Kylian Mbappe, Messi kind of flair and pop to his game. He just scores goals and gets the job done. Now, he's not like he's got some excitement to his game. But, when you walk up to someone and you say, hey, who is the 5 best Premier League strikers of all time? Not many people are going to say Ruud van Nistelrooy, even though he should be in that conversation. Same thing is true with like La Liga, right? If you walk up to someone and say, who are the 5 best Real Madrid strikers of all time? Well, you're going to say Ronaldo. You're going to say, even though he's more of a midfielder, you would say Figo. Not Figo. Would it be Raul? I don't know. You just, Benzema just has always kind of had that chip on his shoulder. You can see he plays with it. Doc, we actually talked about it earlier. In fact, someone super chatted about that. I hope so, Pegasus. Once again, La Liga is not my favorite league. I'm more of a Barcelona than Real Madrid guy. As long as Atleti doesn't win it, I'm fine. But yeah. All right, guys. We will talk to you soon. I'm going to try and get a video out tomorrow. I'm going to be traveling. I'm going to try and get one out, though. It's can I get one? I don't know. We'll see how the editing process goes in just a second. So be on the lookout for Thursday live stream. I will be traveling. So I'm going to try and get back here for a Thursday night live stream. Just depends on how the schedule goes. I do have to run some errands for my mother and her family in BR. So we'll see how all that works out. Okay. We shall talk to you soon. So if you want more PHL coverage and you are watching this live stream right now, all you have to do is if you're watching this mobile or on a big screen or whatever, all you have to do is click on the Power Hour LSU logo or click on my name, Power Hour LSU. That'll take you to my page. And all you have to do is click on videos and you'll see my 2 film studies that I spent a lot of time on. You can watch both of those. And it is quarterback centric. Okay. It's also Will Campbell centric. Believe it or not, this is our first live stream in a while that we didn't even talk that much. This was actually the first time I mentioned Will Campbell. So if you want to see some Will Campbell greatness, you can find those videos. Yes. Power Hour LSU, baby. And tonight, we're doing tacos. Let's go.